museum here has a collection of some artifacts from the history of the house. We actually have thousands of things that were found here in archaeological digs.
Oh, wow.
Those are mostly in storage. This is a makeshift little museum because we're renovating our real museum downstairs. So we moved some things up here to just put on exhibit while we were doing that work.
Oh, I got you.
But these are some things that are specifically related to or tied to Jonathan Hager's life.
Okay.
Hager, the founder of the town. Are you from Hagerstown?
I'm from Virginia, but I have been here a few times. It's a beautiful town.
Yeah, it's a nice town. And Hager's the one who started it. That's why it's named Hagerstown, not because he named it. It's because people called it that. He named it Elizabethtown after his wife, but everybody just called it Hagerstown, and that's the name that ended up sticking. So, but he was a German immigrant, rose to great prominence out here in Western Maryland at a time when there were no cities over here, towns. He moved out here in 1739, and he started life here and opened up a trading post here in this house that he built, and got married and learned more about this region and saw the unique opportunities that existed here, and he decided to found a town here in 1762, which is the first town in Western Maryland. And because of Hager's unique vision and the fact that many who followed in his footsteps after his death would continue his vision, the town grew into becoming an economic and manufacturing powerhouse in the region. Railroads were put here just before the Civil War. You had, by the beginning of the 20th century, they're making cars, trucks, airplanes out at the Fairchild plant out at where the airport is now. They're making just about everything you can imagine here. It's kind of like a big city industry in a small town. So this was an extremely successful town. The interstate highways, the inner connection in between I-70 and 82.
81.
Right here, 81, excuse me, was put right here. And that was a recognition of the commercial importance of this community, and so this became, a major commercial shipping hub now, and it's now, been chosen by a lot of different companies to ship to, all points east of the Mississippi River. So it's becoming it kind of went through a downturn after a lot of the factories and manufacturing shut down. And now it's going through a little bit of a revitalization that people hope that continues to expand and grow.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah. So, but Hager's the guy with the vision and the plan, and he's the one who made it happen to begin with. And so that's why we honor him here. That waistcoat belonged to him. That's an original article of clothing. We don't have a lot of his personal effects that still exist that we know about. So that waistcoat is something special as a result. It's been passed down through generations in his family, and we're lucky to have it. It's a very fancy one. He probably wore it for special occasions, maybe even when he was serving in the General Assembly of Maryland in the 1770s. First non-English born man to ever be allowed to serve as an elected official in Maryland history.
Wow.
They actually changed the law for him so that he could serve, being German born. So already a very important man out here in Western Maryland. They recognize that. The figure below is a little Heisel. He is made of iron and with some gold plating on him. He was commissioned by Jonathan Hager in 1769 and made it as a weather vane to sit atop the first city government buildings in town. And he sat on the different buildings, including the original courthouse market building and then the two city halls. And ultimately, probably about 70 years or so ago, it had to be replaced. It had to be removed because of aging and deteriorating condition because of lightning strikes, hailstorms, even Confederate bullets. It did some damage to him, so he had to be removed, but an exact replica was put up there in his place.
Okay.
On top of City Hall. But this is the original one. And he's meant to represent a soldier of the French and Indian War, a man who, like many of the men in this community, served British against the French, operating out of Fort Frederick nearby.
Ah.
They patrolled the frontier, skirmished here and there with hostile natives, and guarded this part of the frontier for the settlers. And so Hager had this made to honor them, and in that context, it's a very early veterans monument in Maryland history. I won't say it's the first, but it's definitely a very early one in Maryland history. And
yeah.
It's quite likely the oldest piece of public art in Western Maryland for sure.
Huh, I would have never thought of that.
Yeah, so it's got a lot of significance, so we're fortunate to have him here. And the case to the left is a number of things associated with the time period that Hager ran this place as a trading post.
Uh-huh.
He was a businessman, and we'll talk more about it when we go to the house. But those are a lot of those artifacts in there relate to that period of time. Okay, so take a quick look while I get ready for us to go over.
All right.
Yeah, that's just our kitchen area, which is kind of a mess right now. So,
that's for you guys?
Yeah, this was actually an apartment for a caretaker and such back in the day. And so, again, this wasn't supposed to be a museum area or a visitor area. It's just something we converted in order to deal with the fact that our museum building right now is, our museum below is closed for renovations.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. Oh, and if you're probably relatively local.
Across 251 over that way. Got very violent, the guy.
Really?
Yeah, so you help him. What's coming help him? The ambulance or something, you help him. 6'6", going like this, so. I mean, I got a stun gun, but I don't know if he has a gun or a knife on him. I don't mind a knife, a gun.
That it might eventually deteriorate and even the walls collapse or the roof. Ones did all the initial work to restore it and furnish it. So and then they turned it over to the city, which is what we are right now.
Okay.
Now this is all a very old stone house dating back to the youngest parts of it would have been finished, we think, by 1747 to 1750 in that era. Mm-hmm. That's the very top part. The bottom part was actually built. The whole house isn't Hager's, as you see it. He built the bottom part in 1739 and 40. Several months. And you can tell by where these diagonal lines are in the mortar pointing up at the top window.
Oh, yeah.
That shows the roof line in the house that Hager actually built. So it was a one story here with living quarters for his family, his wife actually. Mm-hmm. Kind of a ground floor cellar area, which was his workshop. Mm-hmm. And a short attic above. The second owner, Jacob Rohr, decided to lift the roof and build upwards so he could add another floor of rooms. have bedrooms, and then a larger attic as well. So he increased the square footage quite a bit. But this really gives you a good delineation. It is funny because all together, it could very well be the oldest limestone house still standing in western Maryland, but not all of it's the same age and not all of it is original to Hager. It's very curious. Now, Hager gave it a name, his property here, which included 200 acres, and he named it Hager's Fancy, which has some interesting aspects to it. Not only is it a fun name, a clever name, it's in English, and it gives you an idea of what Hager was thinking. First of all, he was a German immigrant, but he learned English quickly, and he wanted to fit in, be successful in business, be bilingual, so you can really work between people. A lot of German immigrants out there, and many of them didn't really speak English. So he was a go-between, a deal broker, a kind of a pillar of the community, just for the fact that he could kind of move between the two groups. And that's one of the ways in which he really established himself here. But and a different way of looking at it is kind of Hager, acknowledging the fact that he was German when he lived in Germany, but now over here he's American, he's something different, so he's adapting. He's evolving his identity.
Yeah.
I think that he was himself exploring out to the wilderness of the Potomac River Valley. And he understood that of Maryland, Pennsylvania, Virginia, we're all looking at the Potomac River Valley as the gateway to westward expansion. That's the way the population moving west would go. Because going through the mountains was difficult without roads, but going along the river, especially if this river was navigable, which it was, then it could be something that could be utilized to expand the reach of the colonies, the economic success of the colonies, and so on. So Hager knew that. And on top of that, you see the street going past your Virginia Avenue.
Yeah.
Well, Virginia Avenue goes, of course, straight to Williamsport, and then across the river to West Virginia, and it's Route 11.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not officially Route 11 here, but Route 11 kind of got a detour some time ago. But historically, though, that was part of Route 11. That was the original Route 11. But before that, it was the Native American route.
I never thought of that either.
Yeah, it went 500 miles from northern Georgia to northern Pennsylvania.
Wow.
It was a migratory path, hunting trail. It was different things where you had large groups of native people that would move north and south depending on the climate, the seasons. For instance, if it started getting really warm in Georgia, it's time to move north.
Yeah.
And so they would pack up everything and they'd move up this road, and they would go to northern Pennsylvania. They'd hunt and fish along the way. Then they got up there, they'd plant their crops, they'd spend the season up there. They would hunt and fish and live, and then when the winter started to come, they'd move back south, and so on and so forth. And over thousands of years, it wore out this very wide, hard-packed road, which made a perfect wagon for the home. So, in that regard, this was a very important highway, intercolonial highway, that existed that the colonists had nothing to do in constructing it. It was just something they could utilize. And so getting across the mountains was the big thing. That was difficult enough because there weren't very many good roads, any good roads really. So it was a struggle. But once you got over here and got on that road, man, it was smooth sailing north-south. So
Yeah.
this was a crossroads. Hager recognized first off. You got the Potomac River and you got this road, and there's crossroads here that could be exploited, because what a perfect place to found a town. Everybody moving north, south, east, west is going to come through.
Oh, for sure.
So yeah, it was a very smart plan. They're putting in their publicity and their statements to the press and public that they picked the location because of its geographical location where it's easy to ship things all over the eastern part of the country from this location. That was kind of a part of Hager's vision. Would make this a success. And
Sounds good.
so this is the original house, although I will point out that over the years, a lot of other people lived here. Jonathan Hager and his wife Elizabeth lived here for 5 years. Successful as a fur trader that he decided he could afford more land and a bigger house. So he built 200 acres here in this house to a man named Jacob Rohr and bought nearly 2,000 acres a couple miles from here and built a larger house, a log house there that doesn't exist anymore. But so he's moving up.
Yeah.
So the different people lived here over the years. They made modifications here and there. Like the second owner, he built steps up to the second floor so he enclosed this as a little entry hall. So when Hager lived here, it was a big open room. This was built in a very classic German style. Pronunciation, but which roughly translates to hall kitchen house. You have the dining hall all in one large room, and it made up half of the entire living space. With the recognition, this is the most important room in the house. This is where the women are cooking together. They're over to dine with them, to celebrate feasts, whatever. Mm-hmm. And so this is really the center of their social life, communal life, But for our purposes, the most important room.
Wow.
So this would have been in your typical family home, what we would call a living room. Wasn't typical, and this was not used typically. Hager used this as his trading post, where
I guess that explains all the fur and everything.
Yeah. And most significantly, we have it set up to represent his fur trading because that was where he made his fortune, and that was what led him to really think big about doing something in this community. Ultimately, the town he founded was all on land that he bought. So, this is original. Those original things are long gone, but these things are from the same time period. Was a gunsmith. So as a German trained gunsmith, much in demand because Germans were considered the finest gunsmiths in Europe. Mm-hmm. And coming over here and manufacturing firearms for these hunters. And iron tools because he was a blacksmith as well. So he had a small operation downstairs, but he was able to manufacture iron tools that people in this area perhaps didn't have access to otherwise. So one other way he made himself indispensable to the community. My favorite sayings is that wherever you find a blacksmith, a town grows poor.
Oh.
Yeah. Blacksmith makes the tools. So, iron pickaxes, hammers, other types of axes they use for cutting wood and building, farm equipment and things of that nature too. So, at that time, furs were the gold rush. Or going west to find these exotic furs. For wildlife.
Yeah.
And so opportunity was. And so these are some of the kind of furs that they hunted that were much in demand. Which lived in the eastern part of the country at that time. But they did.
Yeah.
They were, but when Hager was living here, there were bison herds in Virginia, in Maryland. They were being hunted to, almost to complete annihilation by any rate. The most important fur of all was beaver. Beaver was the best. Everybody wore these wool. The best kind of wool felt that you would use came from beaver hides. Durable and waterproof. So,
Yeah.
and for centuries, it was the Russians who supplied the beaver pelts for the acres of Europe. They had bears depleted them enormously, maybe even close to extinction in Russia. Around 1600, when the first French and English started coming over here seriously and realized there's a lot of beavers over here. And so for the English especially, who were intent on building colonies and empire, this was about this multi-million-dollar industry. So beaver pelts were much in demand. And ultimately, over the next century, would be one of the main things that would help fuel the growth of the British Empire. So Hager got into this, and he made a killing. He started out, when he bought this property in 1739, he was 25 years old, and he wasn't exactly sure what he was going to do. So he wrote on his deed his occupation was a farmer. In 5 years, he's in the records of the colony of Virginia. So he found an opportunity to make the most of it. That's really, for me, that's why I consider this room story of town. Because of all the things he learned, all these things came together, coalesced. Why this room is so significant.
It all took off.
I think so. And, we've got a great collection of historic artifacts here, furniture and such, that were collected here. For example, is the oldest item in the house, dated 1654. Wow. Vital box. Early in the colonial Maryland days, or was brought over from Europe, but it is the kind of thing a family would have had to keep their family Bible. It was
They were.
it might be the single most valuable thing you own outside of your house. And so they were precious, kept under lock and key, but still in a box. and typically kept near a window in case the house caught fire.
Yeah.
So Hager's family Bible, he has two Bibles. So that's pretty.
Yeah.
So seven's the next room. This was a bedroom, but it was also a sewing and a spinning room. Jonathan Hager's wife, Elizabeth, carried on in the custom of colonial era women. They were spinners and makers of fabrics and sewers of clothing and drapes, curtains. Wool from sheep, which they may have raised themselves, and then spun that into yarn or thread, or flax. This is one of the earliest materials that human beings used to make clothing. Because it would take a lot of imagination, but if you work this right, process it properly, you end up with and you have to process it. So you have to harvest it, big field of it, soak it in nice cold water for a couple weeks. Then you got to smash it with rocks to break up the hard crust, the outer casings. There's soft fibers underneath, but you got to get to them. You got to drag it through a flax comb or hatchel, like a hairbrush, over and over and over again. That straightens it and then strips off the harder. So there wasn't a lot of time for sliding off, let's say. Back on for our June 6th program about spinning and other aspects of colonial life, food, money, trade.
Oh, that sounds cool.
Yeah, it's a living history program. This is your kitchen, a typical colonial era kitchen. A lot of implements either made out of wood, carved by hand, or iron, or some type of metal. Very few luxury items. They were available, they were expensive, so not everybody could afford them. Pieces of chocolate. Specialized other materials, or pewter. One of my favorites is this.
Hey.
Cowboy. That's now. It feels like plastic. It is very durable. Like reenactors, they're called this, actually referred to this as like colonial plastic. They can make it themselves. How about these? Like, for instance, and tin, maybe, and from they can make on their own. Candles, of course, super candles. Hager, as a trader, had access to a lot of more valuable items, and he passed that access along to the benefits of it, because when he did his fur trading, he would basically get like a lot of furs. Philadelphia, and he'd trade them or sell them, typically, and he would make profit. We use that to purchase a bunch of things and bring back here to as to a lot of things that you wouldn't think of. At the time. Yeah. Like one of the things that kind of porcelain that's made in steel China. All the way from China to here. There's even a town here. To give you an idea of one of the things that made here's your typical colonial era fireplace, hearth, open. Back then, there weren't cook stoves that existed. In everybody's house, they would have some kind of, unless they had a separate building for many people, they just cooked inside their own homes, and that meant you had to be extraordinarily careful.
Oh, for sure.
And having a stone house was a benefit, but
Yeah.
a lot of wood houses went up in flames very quickly. All the implements they used for cooking made of metal. Get really hot, so you could burn. It was very dangerous. Women who cooked wearing long skirts would often, their legs would get burned.
Oh,
They
wow.
would burn their hands accidentally. They would have claws and other things to antibiotics. And so folks who changed that when they started becoming thing around 18. But it took a long time for it to spread out into the average person. Those were expensive. So throughout the Civil War, you still saw a lot of people cooking. All around the world. Or in the past, let us say. There's no good Now, part of the house that we're going to right now was built by the Second Jacob War. So you put in, remember, extra rooms for children, wives. So these are bedrooms for now. Landing hallway here, and then this bedroom was a bedroom that he put in for his son.
Yeah.
And it's got wide plants. These boards are really fascinating because of all the flooring in the house, much of it very old. This is the only flooring original to the Hager construction that's still in place.
Oh, really?
Where Hager put it. So this was an attic floor at the time. That diagonal line border that I pointed outside, that would go from like that corner and often go up this way. So, yeah, this was a very typical fashion. Rope bed, taking stuff to the straw. If you were lucky enough to have a bed, this is probably the best you could do.
Yeah.
It'd be lumpy, full bugs that crawl on you in the middle of the night. here. Places were for running in there and kind of all around or even. But that's what you had. Rope beds, of course the rope would stretch out and sag, so you'd have to tighten them 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, this is a common thing that existed for centuries. Modern beds, as we know now, with around it, the most mind-boggling part of that is those flats have been around for. So it took them that long to figure out that they would work better than ropes to put on a bed. Sometimes human imagination works wonders, like with the flats, and other times it's like there's nothing going on there, like with flats for a bed. Or plumbing, indoor plumbing. There was your chamber pump. They're ubiquitous. Everybody had them. They were used at nighttime only, or bad weather, or if you were sick, you would have had outhouses, that sort of thing. But still, no indoor plumbing. Even though the ancient Romans had indoor plumbing, and had developed a more primitive form of flush toilets, but forgot how to reinvent. Their own part.
Yeah.
Or had some. So this is from with some fancier items that. Warming table here or tray was something almost out of like
Oh yeah.
come to life and dance and stuff. But in fact, it was simply a simple warming table that you would put hot embers from a fire in a tray underneath it, and it would radiate. So this is more the common man's form. Whatever you wanted, of course. Every chair, so you can have these little pots, squatting little pots. Fancy sea chest. Sometime in the 1760s. An immigrant experience was similar to a lot of groups of, different parts of Europe and such. It was full of hardship, loss of life, danger. Just outside of Philadelphia, through southern Pennsylvania. And they this way. And they became a very significant ethnic group. Everybody living in the country. Well, but most people came over here were poor, struggling. They didn't have opportunities to own land or be truly free over in their home country. So coming here was to get away from. So, but it wasn't just poor people, it was people with money came over too, because even they found limitations to their wealth. Successful merchants, bankers, or so on, living in Europe would always find themselves second-class citizens because they weren't born into the upper class.
Yeah.
coming to America, but this is more, I think, representative of that aspect of it. Even having something like this, clavichord, which is a precursor to the piano.
Oh, it still works well.
Yeah. It's the same way as piano, but the little hammers are invented before the piano, and I like to think that it's hard to hear way over here.
Yeah.
We need something louder. So that led to the invention of the piano.
I was just thinking.
Yeah, but these clavichords, like this, a piano would echo and probably deafen you.
Yeah.
Anniversary. Over the years, different children were born here. The Lord essentially was born here among other families. Hagers was gone to have 2 children, but not while they lived here. That's when they moved to their next home. For years, it's known that 100 years, at least 13 people are known to have died here.
Oh, man.
Likely more.
Oh, yeah, because childbirth deaths were more common back then than they are now.
And infant mortality is extremely high. It's like 50%. Families wouldn't even.
Wow.
Not everyone, but for a lot of them, they never did. So it's very tragic. So we talked a lot more about the other families who lived here and some of their tragedies. Those stories were kind of spook people. And surrounding the house. I'd like to come back.
That sounds interesting.
Oh, yeah. A lot of great stories. Back downstairs. That's a really long. Below to the cellar.
All right.
When Hager lived here, there was separate entrances. This was for family, for socializing, or if Hager was doing some particular deals, trade deals or whatever, they would come in here. Trading post aspect. But for his actual manual labor, blacksmith, he did that below. That's what we're doing.
Okay. 33 minutes.
That's why we're called Hub City.
Hey, yep.
We're still very busy, very active. Yep, Chuck. It's dark down here because we have some power outage. But this cellar area was up to be a workshop. Now the stone flooring is not original. It would have been dirt, perhaps with some paving stones or brick or planks laid down to walk around in. But the main that water. There's another one feeding a smaller pool of water over there.
Okay.
And it's constantly coming up and flowing. If you stand over and look towards the window in the light, it's constantly flowing out, opening there. And that stream outside is from. This is the reason why Hager built the house where he did. Right here was Paisley Springs. In Frontier, Maryland at the time, of course.
Yeah.
You just can't be sure. So in a lot of places, the key would be you'd find a place and dig a well. It's really hard to dig wells. So, but groundwater come up, so there's a lot of springs. Spring fed. There are many others around here. Hager. Growing war, or growing talks of war, and there were attacks all around the frontier. Sometimes those attacks would be violent and direct. Other times they'd be more passive, using the water, other things like that. Get a well, and just.
Wow.
Yeah. So. Hager is the one who came up with this. One of the ways you can tell in which an area started to become safer.
Yeah.
Because then it wasn't. Frontier times. And this water is crystal clear. I can't vouch for its safety to drink. Sear and other things.
Yeah.
Engine, diesel oil into fuel into the ground, but it's very crystal clear, and historically it would have been the best kind of drinking water. It's also very chilly. It's about 45 degrees temperature, so it is. Also used as air conditioning. It's kind of a. And even in the first floor, it remains very comfortable. It starts getting pretty warm, but yeah. And the last thing is because this is where Hager did his blacksmithing. It's rigged up with an iron furnace box. Charcoal and super heat.
Wow.
So it might have been very unusual to have a blacksmithing operation in the cellar of your house, Hager was improvised. And having the water here was valuable too, because A, if you did, B, you're also using water to cool your iron as you work it. Yeah, so you've got it right here. It's easy enough to use. And so.
Sure was.
So yeah, so this is the backbone of his operation here, where he made. Once he sold this and moved to his other property.
Yeah.
We're not sure if he continued blacksmithing and so on. Likely he did, at least for a time. We just don't know. So we have to just guess. He became also a leading revolutionary figure in the 10 years leading up to the revolution. He was a veteran of the French and Indian War.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I guess that's why he had that,
Yeah,
had that statue made.
Exactly. He was a ranger, but he was also a scout for General Braddock. He and his brother David scouted on Braddock's campaign and were both wounded in battle, likely at the Monongahela.
Wow.
Patrolling the frontier for. But by the time that war was settled with the Treaty of Paris in, I guess it was 1763 or 64, Hager had founded his town, so he's busy now with. And then comes the hammer comes down when the British. Because the colonists had a different perspective, obviously. Early fought, many of us had bled, and some of us had died. Or for you, England,
Yeah.
to increase your political power and economic power by taking control of North America. You want us to pay taxes?
They did.
This community, this included Elizabethtown here, Frederick, also existed, very tiny, but Frederick and Elizabethtown being the two main towns, joined together and they would repudiate the Stamp Act.
Ounce index.
Yeah. Very oppressive, demanding that definitely not gold. They were used to paying taxes with ever, that wasn't going to be allowed anymore. The British started seizing property and things of that nature. So this community rose up, continued to
Also to cut off all imports, purchasing of any British-made goods. It had no tea, of course, among other things.
Yep.
And so this community stayed, very active. Hager being a leader of that, along with other men. And then the war starts, and this community, the very first, there was this community here in this county, and then people in northern Virginia, western Virginia, between Winchester and Shepherdstown, rifle companies to the American Army up in Boston. Right on the cutting edge. However, it gets cut short. They're watching the construction one day when a big log beam slipped and fell on him. Oh, shoot. He lived, long enough to see, to let us know how he would have, fared during the revolution, what things he might have accomplished. One of the last things he did before his death was he worked. Basically meant everything from South Mountain to the western boundary of the colony of New State. That was the last bit of legacy that he left to the people, and it was a big one. His wife are buried in the churchyard at that church where he died.
Amazing.
And that's the tour.
Well, fishies, the duckies. Fly away, ducky.
Take the first exit. In 3 kilometers, turn right onto Halfway Boulevard.